Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. Okay, I've got a very special editorial for you today. And I've got a very important and eminent guest. I've got Prashant Bhushan this evening. And I'm going to speak to Mr. Prashant Bhushan. Prashant Bhushan, I need not tell you, is today the icon for freedom of speech. Prashant Bhushan, who almost risked going behind bars because he said, listen, you know what? I will say what I think is right. So I have the same Prashant Bhushan with me, and I want to understand from him, I want to learn from him, is our justice system still dispensing pure, unadulterated justice? Can a layman expect justice from our courts? I want to ask him that. I've heard a lot about judges being biased and they're listening to the political masters and political interference in the court. I want to ask him whether is it true? Is it true that politicians interfere in this court? I want to ask him. I want to ask him, has our justice system really deteriorated from what it was before? Or is it just a myth? These are questions I want to ask him. And believe me, I'm expecting a very real and honest answer from Prashant Bhushan. It's going to be very interesting. Let's get right into the show. Mr. Bhushan, thank you so much for joining me on my show. Sir, I'll start this with a very cliched question. Were you expecting that 1 rupee fine, 1 rupee punishment when you were actually going into the court, or were you expecting a jail time?
No, I was expecting something more serious to begin with. It seemed quite clear that they were trying to make an example of me and kind of use my case to deter other people also from speaking boldly and frankly about what has been happening in the court. But I was pleasantly surprised to find how much public support I got. And as the public support grew, it became more and more clear that they might not impose a serious punishment.
After whatever is happening in the courts, what happened in January 12, 2018, what happened with you, sir, as a layman, can I expect unadulterated justice from our Indian courts, sir?
No, unfortunately, the judicial system, particularly the Supreme Court, is not in good shape. There are all kinds of problems. There are problems of important cases not being heard by the court. There are also problems of cases being influenced by extraneous considerations, judgments being influenced by extraneous considerations. There are also problems of lack of independence of the courts. So this lack of independence has become a very serious problem, and that is what I had alluded to in my tweet.
To what extent is political interference in our court, sir?
No, it's there to a very substantial extent, and that is why I had said that when historians look back at the last 6 years, they will see that democracy has been substantially destroyed, and that the Supreme Court has played a significant role in allowing the destruction of that democracy. So there is a significant erosion in the independence of the Supreme Court at any rate.
Which means, is our court as good or as bad as any government office? Is our court as good or as bad as an RTO office, for instance?
No, I wouldn't go as far as saying that, because there are still some judges in the Supreme Court who are very independent and who give very good, robust judgments. For example, today, Justice Rohington Nariman's bench has ordered the government to adhere to their own guidelines about the width of the Char Dham highway, which the government wanted to increase to 7 meters, though what is allowed is 5.5 meters. And they were wantonly destroying the ecology and environment of that region. So therefore, there are still number of very good and independent judges in the Supreme Court. So I won't say that it is just like a government office, but yes, many legal commentators have even said that.
But is it getting there, sir?
No, I think now, see, one good outcome of this contempt case has been that it has brought the spotlight on the Supreme Court, and its role over the last few years is now being examined very closely by many observers and many commentators. And I hope that this will lead to some correction in the independence of the Supreme Court.
Was the court always like this, or has this happened in the recent past? Was there a golden era for the court?
No, it wasn't always like this. During the emergency also, the Supreme Court had buckled down in that famous habeas corpus case. But after that, it had been, I mean, certainly between the years 2000 and 2014, the Supreme Court was very independent. It gave the 2G judgment, the Coalgate judgment, and many other important judgments. And even prior to that, this phenomenon is mostly during the last 6 years. We have seen that when there are very strong governments, as is the case at present, then very often the Supreme Court kind of buckles down and starts submitting to the wishes of the government, which is what we are seeing over the last 6 years. So this is an unusual period for the Supreme Court. It wasn't always like this, except perhaps to some extent during the emergency.
So you're saying this is possibly the worst period for the courts after the emergency. Would that be
Yes,
true, sir?
yes, there is no doubt about that. Every commentator, every serious commentator about the Supreme Court believes that and says that.
Sir, I have a question to ask you. Sir, between Justice Deepak Mishra and between Mr. Ranjan Gogoi, if we were to rate them from a scale to 1 to 10, sir, how would you rate Justice Deepak Mishra and how would you rate Mr. Ranjan Gogoi?
See, Justice Deepak Mishra was otherwise a fairly good, competent and liberal judge. And in general, he was a relief-giving judge. And in general, he was also not so much under the control of the government. Unfortunately, what happened seems to, it was probably triggered by that medical college case, because the CBI registered an FIR which said that the medical college, along with the retired Chief Justice of Odisha and some brokers, had entered into a conspiracy to bribe the Supreme Court to obtain a favorable judgment. Justice Deepak Mishra was dealing with that case. And thereafter, they recorded some conversations between that retired Chief Justice and the brokers, etc., which suggested that that arrangement had more or less been made. And so that is why when we got hold of that material, we moved the court, saying that it is dangerous to allow this investigation to be in the hands of a government-controlled agency, and it should be handed over to an SIT which is under the control of the Supreme Court. But surprisingly, the Chief Justice Deepak Mishra, who should have welcomed such a petition, he showed great alacrity in sending this matter to a bench in which Justice Arun Mishra was also there, who quickly said that no, there is no need for such an independent investigation and the CBI is good enough to handle this matter. I mean, I have never heard of the Supreme Court saying that the investigation of a matter involving the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court itself should remain with a government-controlled agency and not with an independent SIT appointed by the Supreme Court. It is unheard of. And what does it show? It shows as if the then Chief Justice was willing to play ball with the government so long as the government played ball with him. That's what it suggests. So after that, you see, his independence was compromised. And so far as Justice Gogoi is concerned, the sexual harassment incident happened immediately after he became Chief Justice, where he just panicked. And on a Saturday, he assembled a bench headed by himself to deal with that sexual harassment case, asked Justice Arun Mishra to be along with him, and passed some kind of absurd orders. And thereafter, he constituted a bench headed by Justice Arun Mishra. And all that evidence of that sexual harassment was with the police, with the Delhi police. So therefore, thereafter, it seems that he also buckled and he gave all kinds of judgments in favor of the government, including that of the CBI director, including that of this Ayodhya case, the Rafale case, etc. And thereafter, he went on to accept a Rajya Sabha nomination. So, I mean, he is probably looked upon as the worst Chief Justice so far. That's the general perception about him. But we never know. We are constantly seeing unprecedented things happening.
Judge sat on his own case. The lady was sacked from the job. Then later on, she was brought back into the job. Sir, there were cases filed against her. Then the cases were withdrawn against her. All this happened in the Supreme Court and nobody could do anything. Why are we so helpless?
That's because we don't have any independent body or independent system of examining complaints against judges. This in-house inquiry was appointed by Justice Gogoi himself.
Correct.
Against him. And it was headed by this present Chief Justice Bobde, who gave a clean chit, but that clean chit never saw the light of the day. Copy of that report was never given. That lady walked out of the proceedings because they were not even willing to have her lawyer there. They were not willing to record what happened there. So that lady walked out of those proceedings, and thereafter a clean chit was given, and that clean chit was never shown to anybody as to what was the basis of that clean chit. But thereafter, the Chief Justice Bobde himself reinstated her with full back wages and gave her maternity leave for 6 months, thereafter on full pay. So what does that suggest? Even all those criminal cases against her, the departmental proceedings against her husband and her husband's brother, they were all withdrawn. What does that suggest? That all that was done in order to pressurize this poor woman.
Mrs. Indira Jaisingh, her husband was raided, her office was raided.
Yes, that also happened. That thereafter some petition was filed against Indira Jaisingh, and in that Gogoi sat and he gave some permission to the CBI to investigate, etc.
That means this can happen again. There is nothing that can stop this, right?
Yes, unfortunately, you see, we have a system where there is no accountability of judges of the higher judiciary. We all know that the impeachment system is unworkable and impractical, and we need an independent judicial complaints commission, which should be independent of the government as well as of the judiciary, to whom complaints can be made, who should have an investigating machinery under them. But that is not being done. They are saying in-house machinery. In-house machinery we have seen is totally bogus.
For all this, you need political will. And obviously, the government is never going to do that, which technically means this is never going to happen.
Yes, the government is happy to allow the judiciary to remain unaccountable so long as the judiciary is doing their bidding. It's a case of you scratch my back, we scratch yours. Both are happy with this system. And that is why nothing is happening.
I'm not talking about constitutionally, but factually, how much role does the Prime Minister of India and the so-called senior ministers play in appointment of a Chief Justice?
No, technically, they don't play much role.
Correct. Technically, no, sir. I'm talking about factually.
Practically, they play a huge role today, because this government is not willing to appoint anybody that is inconvenient to them. Anybody who is really independent, they are not willing to do that. So they sit on those recommendations for years altogether, and they suggest their own names. and they tell the Supreme Court Chief Justice or the Collegium that we will appoint the people that you have recommended only if you appoint the people that we want. And unfortunately, this has been happening. Of course, many Chief Justices who somehow come under the control of the government, they are happy to play ball and make the appointments that the government wants. And therefore, this government is notoriously able to push through the appointments that they want and block the appointments that they don't want.
In reality, the government plays a large role in appointing the Chief Justice, and the Chief Justice, end of the day, would be listening to the government. That's what is happening, isn't it, sir?
That is unfortunately happening to a very large extent. And unfortunately, the agencies, etc., also seem to be getting used by the government to somehow bring judges and, in particular, Chief Justices to bend to their wishes.
Judges, post-retirement, they get constitutional positions like Mr. Ranjan Gogoi. Sir, isn't this wrong? And if this is wrong, is there anything that anybody can do to stop this?
Yes, this is totally wrong, totally unethical. But the only way to stop this is to make a law which says that the government should play no role in post-retirement jobs for judges, whether they are political jobs like governorships or Rajya Sabha membership, or any kind of judicial job by way of appointment to a commission or a tribunal, etc. Government should play no role at all in selecting judges for post-retirement jobs. That should be the law, that should be the rule.
If Mr. Ranjan Gogoi becomes the Chief Minister of Assam tomorrow, sir, what will be the message that is sent to the rest of the judiciary?
It's already a very unfortunate message. The very fact that he accepted the nomination to the Rajya Sabha is itself bad enough. It sends a very bad message. In fact, it calls into question all those judgments, the Rafale judgment, the Ayodhya judgment, the CBI director judgment that he gave short of his retirement.
Sir, what do you dislike more, the right-wing ideology or the Prime Minister of this country?
No, the Prime Minister is just the face of this kind of ideology. It would not be correct to call it the right-wing ideology. It's really a fascist ideology, and it's worse than that. It's today it has come down to an ideology in which you try and degrade the capacity of people to think critically, to distinguish between truth and falsehood, so that, and you control all the means of propaganda, so that thereafter, as Chomsky said, you can manufacture consent by propaganda and by obliterating the ability of the people to distinguish between what is true, what is false, what are real issues, what are bogus issues. And today exactly that is being done. And this is the most insidious attack, not just on democracy, it's an attack on our culture, on our civilization, on our very capacity to be human itself.
How much would you blame this government to get the courts in the situation they are in currently?
The government has a huge role to play to bring the courts in this situation. Government has the major role in this. They have suborned every institution, not just the judiciary. The Election Commission is no longer independent. The CAG is no longer independent. The CBI, the NHRC, none of these institutions are independent anymore. Each and every regulatory institution has been suborned by the government.
Sir, what happens tomorrow if all the government institutions are completely under the government control, with the concept of autonomy just vanishing from the face of this earth? What happens, sir? What will be the situation then?
So we can no longer rely upon these institutions to protect our democracy, to have free and fair elections, to protect the public exchequer as the CAG is supposed to do, we have to then rely upon ourselves. We have to build public opinion. We have to, fortunately, though much of the mainstream media has been captured by the government, but there is still the internet media and the social media, which is not in the control of the government. And through that, we have to propagate the truth. Through that, we have to fight our campaigns to restore the integrity of these institutions and to run campaigns for electoral reforms, judicial reforms, agriculture reforms, etc.
Is there a single institution today that is autonomous? Any one single institution in this country that is autonomous?
Today, there is, unfortunately, I can't think of any institution which has survived this onslaught, this very, very brutal onslaught and very, very well thought out onslaught by the government to suborn the independence of these institutions. Hardly any institution has survived this onslaught.
Your father and you were founders of AAP. How do you view AAP today as a political party?
See, unfortunately, AAP has gone the way of other political parties. It has just become like any other political party, trying to stay in power and using every kind of unethical, immoral means. Unfortunately, Kejriwal has taken control of the whole party. We found out too late that the man is completely unethical, willing to use any kind of unethical, immoral means for his ends. He has not only does he have no ideology, he has no regard for making any policies, etc. He adopts whatever policy stance that is convenient to him at the moment. And he has established his complete dictatorial hold over the party. So that party has no future, at least I don't see any future in terms of being able to do anything big or useful for this country. It will peter off in another few years and it will die its natural death.
Sir, do you see it aligning with BJP in the near future?
I mean, Arvind can align with anybody if it suits his political purpose. So I wouldn't rule it out at all.
Thank you so much for talking to us.